If someone ever told you that Aries money only comes from luck, then today, you may want to listen to this story again, from the very beginning. Because the truth is, the financial destiny of Aries has never been decided by chance. It has always been shaped by a very quiet, very deep moment of awakening inside you. A moment when you stop doubting yourself, stop shrinking yourself to fit the world, and finally step into the place where Aries' pioneering energy was always meant to stand. In the next few minutes, you'll begin to understand why Aries is entering a rare and powerful cycle right now. A cycle where money, opportunities, and recognition start appearing at the same time. Not because you chase them, but because you're finally ready to become the person the universe can trust with prosperity. This is not a get-rich-quick story. This is a story about Aries activating the right fire within. And right now, if you feel something very subtle stirring inside your chest, say this to yourself, softly but clearly: I am ready to awaken the true flow of abundance. For Aries, when you claim that statement, you're not just interacting with this video, you're choosing to stand on the same frequency as the energy of action and courage that defines Aries at its core. And if these words make you feel seen, understood, recognized, share them, because positive energy, once released, always finds its way back to the one who sends it out. But to truly understand why Aries money is about to shift so powerfully, we need to return to something even deeper. The real Aries, beneath the strong exterior you show the world. As Aries grows older, you begin to realize something early on. The world is not always ready for your speed. You move faster than others, not because you're reckless, but because you see the starting line before anyone else does. While others are still observing, evaluating, hesitating, you already feel the inner surge pulling you toward action. And yet, that same quality often earns you the same advice: slow down, be more realistic, play it safe. At first, you push back, then you learn to stay quiet, and eventually, you learn to adjust yourself to fit the common rhythm. Even though, deep down, you know it's not your true pace. When an Aries begins to live slower than their nature, something very subtle happens. You don't lose your ability, but you lose your edge. You still work, you still try, you still push forward, but the feeling of opening new paths is gone. Life turns into repetition. And for Aries, nothing drains life force faster than feeling trapped in a familiar loop with no breakthrough. That's when you start bracing yourself, bracing to stay motivated, bracing to look okay, bracing to prove that you're still on track. And in that state of bracing, many Aries unconsciously turn money into a measuring stick. You tell yourself that if you earn more, the emptiness will disappear. But money, when it comes from disconnection, rarely brings fulfillment. It's like rain falling on land that's been dry for too long. Some water seeps in, but the roots remain unfed. And quietly, you start wondering why you have to work harder than everyone else just to hold on to what you have. There's something very few people say out loud to Aries: you don't lack the ability to create value. What you lack is space to be the initiator. When you're not allowed to be the one who starts, your energy has nowhere to flow naturally. It turns inward, becoming restlessness, irritability, or a vague sense of unease. Many Aries mistake this feeling for not being good enough, not being ready, not being worthy yet. But in truth, it's a sign that you've stayed too long in a role that was never meant for you. Think about it for a moment. When have you felt most alive in your life? Rarely during perfect moments. Usually it's when you're starting something new, standing at an uncertain decision, acting first, and adjusting later. In those moments, regardless of the outcome, you feel alive. And that feeling is what truly sustains Aries energy over time. When that sense of aliveness returns, everything else begins to move with it, including material resources. Many Aries once blamed themselves for being too impulsive in the past. But if you look closely, Those bold steps are exactly what shaped who you are today. You learned fast because you dared to fail early. You became strong because you fell more than once. The problem only begins when you stop allowing yourself to experiment. When fear of repeating old mistakes makes you delay action, you unknowingly lock the door to your next breakthrough. And money, like an intelligent current, always flows toward movement, toward courage, toward pioneering spirit. You may not realize it, but every time you suppress an idea, because it's too different, you send a very clear signal about how you value yourself. You tell the world that safety matters more than your inner calling. And the world, faithful to those signals, responds accordingly, not as punishment, but as reflection. When you broadcast hesitation, you receive limitation. When you broadcast initiative, you receive opportunity. Aries doesn't need to be reckless to live true. You only need to be honest with your own rhythm. Some decisions don't require complete data. Some paths only reveal themselves after you take the first step. And some resources only appear once you've committed. This is a lesson many Aries learn after periods that felt stuck. Not because options were missing, but because you forgot that you create options. If your finances feel stalled right now, try seeing them not as a problem to fix, but as a message to hear. They may be telling you it's time for a new direction, a new role, or a new expression that better fits who you are now. Because Aries was never designed to walk one road forever. You were designed to begin, to pivot, to reinvent yourself. Many times in one lifetime. There's a simple truth, often overlooked. When Aries stands in the role of true leadership, you don't need to prove much. Trust follows you naturally. You become a reference point for others. And in the material world, trust always carries value. People invest in, collaborate with, and support those willing to take responsibility for their direction. When you avoid that role, you unknowingly avoid the resources that come with it. So ask yourself, gently, if you weren't afraid of judgment, failure, or starting over, what would you begin right now? The answer doesn't need to be fast. What matters is that you allow the question, because simply facing it is already a step back toward your pioneering nature. And every step like that, no matter how small, loosens the invisible knots holding your flow in place. If you've made it this far and feel like something inside you is quietly loosening, don't rush past that feeling. It isn't random. It's a sign that a part of you is ready to step out of waiting mode. Leave a small sign in the comments as a way to remind yourself that you're still listening to your own call to lead. And if these words reflect you, there's a good chance they also reflect another Aries you know. Sharing this might be the way you help them remember who they truly are. But this is only the beginning. When Aries suppresses their pioneering nature for too long, that energy doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It waits. And when the cycle shifts, especially around money and personal value, that release tends to be unmistakable, decisive, clear, and unwilling to let you live the old way any longer. What happens when that compressed energy starts looking for a way out? And why will the next phase force Aries to confront directly how you earn money, how you use it, and how you truly value yourself? That's what needs to be explored more deeply. In the next part, Aries often doesn't realize that financial ups and downs aren't random events. They're like waves, rising fast, falling just as suddenly, leaving you feeling both exhilarated and exhausted. There are times when money comes so easily, you almost believe one more step will open everything. And then there are other moments, with the same energy, the same determination, you suddenly feel out of breath, as if you ran too fast, without stopping to breathe. And in the quiet space between those waves, a familiar question appears. Soft, persistent. Aries carries natural speed. You think fast, decide fast, act fast. Mars gives you near instant action, without long internal negotiation. When opportunity flashes, you can seize it. before others even notice. That's a powerful gift. But every gift has two sides. And for Aries, speed can sometimes move faster than listening. You're more comfortable moving forward than stopping, more drawn to conquest than observation. And that's exactly what creates the distinctive rise and fall rhythm. In your financial life, there are times you make money through pure energetic momentum. An idea arrives quickly. You execute quickly. Results show up quickly. But once things settle, once patience is required, once steady nurturing is needed, your interest begins to fade. Not because you lack ability, but because your inner fire needs the feeling of opening something new. When that feeling disappears, you can slip into a state of continuing without connection. And money, always sensitive to inner states, starts reflecting that shift. Many Aries have felt this. You begin a journey with full passion. Then somewhere along the way, your energy drains. You don't understand why everything flowed at first and later became so heavy. Sometimes you blame yourself for lacking discipline. Sometimes you wonder if you're not resilient enough. But rarely do you ask a different question: whether you're trying to maintain a pace that no longer fits who you are now. Aries cash flow clearly mirrors your relationship with your inner fire. When you use fire to light the way, it's warm, guiding. When you use fire to burn everything fast, it flares bright and burns out quickly. There are phases when you act as if moving fast enough will solve everything, but life doesn't work entirely that way. Some cycles require stillness, adjustment, patience, and those are often the moments Aries finds most challenging. You may have asked yourself, on very quiet nights, why you always start so strong, yet feel exhausted halfway through. That question doesn't arise because you're weak. It appears because a part of you is beginning to understand something deeper. That strength isn't only about starting, but also about sustaining. And for Aries, learning how to sustain doesn't come from forcing yourself to slow down. It comes from understanding how you're using your life energy. There are moments when you use money to compensate for a lack of motivation. When your inner energy feels tangled, you tend to spend faster, decide faster, as if hoping an external change might calm the unease inside. And sometimes it works for a moment, but when the familiar feeling returns, you realize you're standing before the same question again, just in a different circumstance. Aries is not bad with money. You simply haven't fully befriended your own rhythm yet. You're used to moving forward, but not yet used to listening for the signal to pause. Pausing isn't about quitting, it's about adjusting. Pausing isn't about fear, it's about respecting the limits of energy. But in a world that glorifies speed, very few people teach Aries that stopping at the right time is also a form of courage. When you don't allow yourself to stop, your body and emotions will do it for you. Fatigue appears. Unexpected discouragement sets in. Financial decisions begin to lose clarity, and you fall back into a familiar loop, trying to break through once more, hoping this time will be different. But without an inner shift, the outcome is often just another version of the same story. There's a very subtle truth about Aries' financial journey. It's not a straight upward line. It's a series of waves. The issue isn't whether waves exist, it's how you ride them. When you understand for your own rising and falling rhythm, you no longer panic when cash flow slows. You no longer rush when money comes quickly. You begin to see things with more clarity, more gentleness. And that's exactly what creates the stability you once believed wasn't meant for you. If you're listening right now and recognizing yourself in every line, take a moment to ask yourself, how much do you see yourself in this story? No judgment, no comparison, just honesty. That honesty is the first step toward changing how you relate to money. And sometimes a gentle realization is all it takes to shift an entire old cycle. You may have believed that to become more stable, you had to be less yourself, less passionate, less bold, less different. But the truth is far more delicate than that. What you need is not to extinguish the fire, but to learn how to keep it burning evenly. When fire burns evenly, it doesn't exhaust you, it warms, it lights the way, it nourishes. And in that state, money is no longer short bursts of intensity. It becomes a flow that's predictable and trustworthy. Some Aries only begin to find financial stability when they allow themselves to change their pace, not by giving up ambition, but by choosing what truly deserves their energy. When you stop trying to prove something to the world, when you stop racing to match an image, you begin to hear your inner voice more clearly, and that voice often leads you to decisions that are less dramatic, but far more sustainable. If you've ever experienced making money very fast, only to lose it just as fast, try seeing it not as a sentence, but as an invitation. An invitation to return to your true rhythm. An invitation to learn the difference between momentary excitement and long-term commitment. When you accept that invitation, not through force, but through curiosity and self-respect, the story begins to change. You can start very simply. Listen to your body when making a financial decision. Observe your emotions when money comes and when money goes. No judgment, no rushing to fix. Just observe. For Aries, this kind of observation can feel uncomfortable at first because it slows down your habitual réflexe d'acte. But it's precisely in that slowing space that you begin to notice signals you once overlooked. If these words make you feel lighter, leave a small sign in the comments, not to analyze or explain, but simply to confirm that you are present with yourself. And if you see yourself in this story, there are likely many other Aries experiencing the same thing. Sharing it may be the way you help them feel less alone in their rises and falls. Because when you look deeper, the financial fluctuations in Aries' life are not failures. They are tests of how you use your life energy. Every rise is a reminder that you are capable of creating a great deal. Every fall is an invitation to learn how to preserve. And when you begin to understand that language, you stop fearing the cycles. You start working with them instead of fighting against them. And then, as this understanding settles quietly inside you, something else begins to take shape. A very subtle shift, but powerful enough to redirect an entire old story. Your decisions become more mature without losing boldness. Your steps grow steadier without sacrificing your pioneering spirit. And in that exact state, a new astrological cycle begins to open in silence, bringing changes, not only in money, but in how you define your own value, what lies ahead, and why this time, nothing will follow the old rhythm anymore. That's the story we need to step forward to see more clearly, as the familiar ups and downs gradually quiet within Aries' awareness. A deeper layer of the story begins to reveal itself, not loudly, not suddenly, but like a dim light, slowly appearing after a long night. This is the phase when many Aries feel as if their life has been placed into a new setting, not because the outside world changed too fast, but because inside, you've begun to see everything through different eyes. Decisions that once made you restless are now considered more carefully. Opportunities that once pulled you in instantly now invite you to pause. Just one more beat. And within this very subtle shift, a new astrological cycle is quietly unfolding. This cycle does not arrive to test Aries' recklessness. It arrive to invite you into a more mature role in how you use your energy. At the deeper layers of the birth chart, important movements begin touching the areas connected to material value and social position. These are not fleeting influences, they are like doors that open slowly, but once open, they require true readiness from anyone who steps through. Aries is no longer driven only by momentary excitement. Instead, you're guided by deeper questions about the meaning of your work, of money, and of the role you occupy in a much larger life. You may notice that during this phase, financial and career opportunities no longer arrive in familiar forms. They are no longer instant, séductive invitation. They often come with clear responsibility, a project that requires long-term commitment, a position that demands responsibility, not only for yourself, but for others. A path that promises stability, but asks for patience and step-by-step construction. And right here, Aries begins to feel a very clear difference between acting on instinct and acting with awareness. In this phase, the universe does not deliver money as a random reward. It places you into situation where you must ask yourself how much you're truly ready to carry. Money becomes a test of maturity, not merely a measure of success. When you look back at earlier stages, you may realize that you once wanted more without fully considering what you would do with it. Now, as expansion becomes possible, you're invited to look deeper into your own motivations. A very important transition is taking place. From proving personal capability, Aries is gradually placed into a position where your value is tied to the impact you create. You're no longer asked only how much you can earn, but what you can contribute. And for a zodiac sign with such strong initiating energy, this is both a powerful opportunity and a delicate challenge, because leading in a new era is no longer about moving fastest. It's about moving in the right direction. You may feel that you're being asked to slow down, not to stop, to slow down, to see more clearly, to slow down, to choose more consciously, to slow down, to understand that every financial decision now carries long-term consequences. And through that process, you begin to realize something essential. Stability is not the opposite of pioneering spirit. It's what keeps that spirit from burning out too soon. Some Aries, during this cycle, begin to think differently about career, no longer asking only, what can I do? But, what do I want to contribute? No longer asking, how far can I go? But, what do I want to leave behind? These questions may feel empty at first, because they don't offer quick answers. But that emptiness is the space required for a new vision. To formi. In this context, money begins to be seen as a tool to nurture meaningful projects, a tool to build more sustainable structures for yourself and the community around you. When you start seeing money this way, your relationship with it changes. You no longer feel the need to chase it. You no longer feel the urge to grip it tightly. You begin placing it exactly where it belongs, not below your core values, and not above them either. There may be moments when you quietly wonder whether you're missing the explosive opportunities you used to chase. But if you look more closely, you'll notice that what's arriving now carries a different kind of depth. It may not thrill you instantly, but it brings a sense of calm when you think about the future. And for an Aries who has lived through enough rises and falls, that feeling is anything but small. This astrological cycle also highlights another side of you, your capacity for responsibility. Not heavy responsibility, but responsibility chosen freely. When you begin to see that what you create affects others, your actions naturally become more deliberate. You stop asking only, can I do this? And start asking, should I? That shift alone marks a very clear stage of growth in Aries' journey. You may find yourself placed on situation where you're asked to lead, not just through action, but through vision, where you're called to set standards, not just break old ones. That requires a deeper connection to your personal values. When you're unclear about what you stand for, long-term decisions become difficult. And this cycle is inviting you to clarify exactly that. Pay attention during this time to the opportunities that both excite you and make you hesitate slightly. Very often, those are the most important doors. The hesitation isn't there because you're incapable. It's there because you sense the weight of responsibility attached. And that's a good sign. It means you're entering a phase where your actions carry more weight, more meaning. There's a powerful question worth asking yourself right now. Are you willing to receive more, if it also means you'll need to give more? Giving not only money, but time, presence, commitment. When you answer that question honestly, the path opening in front of you becomes clearer. Not every path is meant for you, and choosing the right path matters far more than choosing the fastest one. If you feel like you're standing at such a threshold, allow yourself to pause and feel it. You don't have to decide immediately, but don't turn away from that feeling. It's a sign that you're being invited into a broader version of yourself. And money, in this context, is only one part of a much larger picture. You may begin to notice that when you think about using your resources to create value for others, your energy stabilizes, your decisions become less emotional, yet also less conflicted. You no longer feel the need to prove your strength, because your strength now comes from clarity of purpose, clarity of boundaries, clarity of what you're willing to commit to. If these words invite reflection, ask yourself something very simple. If money were no longer the final goal, what would you want to use it to build? A safer life for your family, a project with long-term value, a community where people grow together. There's no right or wrong answer, only the answer that fits who you are at this stage of your life. And if you feel ready, leave your thoughts behind, not for anyone else to judge, but to acknowledge to yourself that you're entering this phase with awareness. Those answers, whether held quietly or written out loud, become meaningful markers on your journey. This astrological cycle opens financial doors for Aries, not by giving you more unconditionally, but by placing you where you can become worthy of what's arriving. And when you begin to understand that, you stop seeing money as something to chase and start seeing it as a resource to use with intention. It's within this shift that the foundation for longer, more grounded steps is formed. But to truly go far, to enter a phase that is stable and resilient, Aries is asked to revisit something fundamental in the way you think, something that once helped you break through, but now needs refinement to match the person you've become. And that is what we're meant to explore next. There is a very particular moment in Aries' journey of maturity that not everyone recognizes. It's the moment when the goals that once set you on fire no longer hold your heart the same way. Not because you've grown weaker, not because you've lost ambition, but because something deep inside you is shifting. The fire is still there, stronger than before. It simply no longer wants to burn inside confined spaces. It needs a wider sky to burn steadily. Aries grows up in this world with a powerful instinct to move forward, to win, to prove that you can. In the early stages of life, that instinct is necessary. You need to push past limits. You need to claim your place. You need to show yourself that you are strong enough to stand. But then, at a certain point, if you listen deeply enough, you begin to notice something else. Winning for yourself alone no longer feels as complete as it once did. After each achievement, a very subtle emptiness appears. And that emptiness is not a sign of lack. It's the call of a deeper layer of meaning. The fire of Aries was never created to serve the ego alone. It was born to light the way, to guide, to open new possibilities for others as well. But to recognize that, you need a very gentle shift in how you think about prosperity, not by abandoning personal desire, but by expanding it. When your goals move beyond the boundary of me, the energy you radiate changes, and money, which always responds to energy, begins to find you in a different way. Some Aries achieve success very early, yet feel lonely. Right inside that success, you stand at the top, looking down, unsure who to share the moment with. You have everything you once wanted, but no clear sense of what to do next. And in those very quiet moments, a question begins to echo. Then what? And if you're brave enough not to rush to fill that question with new goals, you start hearing an answer from a very deep place. At its deepest level, prosperity is not about having more. It's about allowing more, allowing yourself to live in alignment with your core values, allowing what you create to carry meaning for others, allowing your success to become inspiration, not a wall that separates you. When you enter that state, You stop feeling the need to chase money. You begin to notice money arriving naturally, as a result of standing in the right place, within a much larger picture. There's a beautiful truth many Aries only discover after falling a few times. When you do something just to prove you're capable, you'll always need to do more to hold that position. But when you do something because you believe it truly needs to be done, because it offers real value, you're no longer alone. You start attracting like-minded people, aligned resources, opportunities that arrive at exactly the right time. And money, in that flow, is no longer the goal. It becomes the vehicle that carries you farther along the path you've chosen. Imagine an Aries burning inside a small room. The flame is strong et brilliant, but without enough space. It quickly consumes the oxygen. That's why many Aries feel exhausted, even while succeeding. Not because you're not strong enough, but because the space you're burning in is too small for who you've become. When you expand the space, by expanding your purpose, the fire doesn't weaken. It becomes steadier, warmer, more sustaining. At first, thinking about prosperity this way may feel unfamiliar. You're used to setting clear goals, measurable goals, achievable goals. But goals larger than the ego don't arrive with numbers right away. They arrive as feelings. The feeling that what you're doing matters. The feeling that you're contributing to something beyond personal gain. And if you're patient enough to follow that feeling, the numbers come later. There's a crucial moment in Aries' journey when you realize something profound. You don't need to stand above others to lead. You only need to stand firm enough that others feel safe walking beside you. Leadership at this stage is no longer about overpowering energy. It's about presence. You lead through clarity, through integrity, through keeping your word. And in that presence, trust begins to grow. Where trust exists, prosperity follows. If today you are wealthy, ask yourself slowly, where would you want the world to be better? It doesn't have to be something grand. It could be a healthier workplace, support for those just starting the path you once walked, building something that lasts even after you're gone. These questions don't weaken you, they deepen you. And when you go deeper, you become more resilient. Many Aries fear that focusing on giving will dilute their personal drive, but reality often shows the opposite. When you discover a reason bigger than yourself to wake up each morning, your motivation stabilizes. You're no longer dependent on fleeting emotions. You're no longer pulled into pointless comparisons. You know where you're going and why you're walking that path. You may have asked yourself before what being wealthy truly means to you. Time, freedom, a sense of safety, the power of choice, the ability to create impact. There is no wrong answer, but when you allow yourself to explore that question deeply, you begin to build a prosperity mindset that truly fits who you are, not who society expects you to be. And when that mindset becomes clear, your financial decisions naturally become more consistent, more grounded, more aligned. In this phase, Aries is being invited to become a different kind of leader. Not the kind who only knows how to push forward, but the kind who knows how to listen. Not the leader who always goes first, but the one who knows when waiting is the wisest move. This doesn't take away your pioneering nature. It matures. And when that maturity settles in, money no longer comes and goes with emotional swings. It becomes a directed flow, moving with purpose. If you feel like you're standing at a mental threshold like this, trust that you are not moving slower than before. You are simply moving deeper, deeper into values, deeper into meaning, deeper into connection. And that depth is what allows you to go very far without burning out. That is the greatest gift of the prosperity mindset. Aries is learning to touch. Ask yourself, and if you wish, share it in the comments. What does wealth mean to you at this stage of your life? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to sound noble. It only needs to be true, because that truth is the starting point of a new flow. And when you have the courage to namit, you realize you are no longer alone on this path, because Aries' journey has never been just a personal one. It always carries a mission of expansion. Sooner or later, when you allow yourself to step into that mission. With an open heart, prosperity is no longer something you chase. It becomes a natural companion, appearing to support you in doing things greater than yourself. And when you reach this point, when your idea of prosperity is no longer about how much you have, but about who you are becoming, a very special message begins to form. A message that doesn't come from effort, but from alignment. And that is the final thing that needs to be heard. The universal message, meant specifically for Aries, waiting to be revealed. In the next chapter, there are moments in an Aries life when all external noise seems to fade. Not because the world stops moving, but because you finally hear clearly a familiar voice that's been drowned out for a long time. That voice doesn't command, it doesn't push, it doesn't promise. It asks one simple question: what are you choosing for yourself? And within that seemingly gentle question, the universe begins to speak. Aries is born with a rare gift that few people dare to use fully: free will. You were not programmed to follow worn paths. You were not created to merely react to circumstances. From the beginning, you carried the ability to choose, to initiate, to say, I choose this path, even when the road has not yet been drawn. But every gift comes with responsibility, and the universe, in its quiet intelligence, only responds when you truly use that power of choice. There may have been times when you waited for a clearer sign, a guarantee, a confirmation that you were on the right track. But the more you mature, the more you realize the universe rarely gives answers first. It gives opportunities, then quietly watches how you step into them. Not to judge, but to reflect. When you choose actively, the universe opens. When you hesitate too long, the universe waits. It does not pressure. It does not abandon. It simply remains patient. This message is especially important for Aries, because you can easily confuse reactive action with conscious choice. Not every action is a true choice. Sometimes you're just escaping discomfort. Sometimes you're repeating an old pattern because it feels familiar. The universe doesn't respond strongly to those actions. It responds to the moments when you stop, look directly at yourself, and say, even afraid, I choose. No one can leave it. An Aries life for you. That may sound obvious, but many people understand it only intellectually, not through experience. You can take advice, you can learn, you can listen, but in the end, you are the one standing at the choice. You alone pay the cost of what you don't dare to choose, and receive fully what you do. That's why your life can never be a copy of someone else's. Many Aries have spent far too long living up to expectations, family expectations, social expectations, the expectations of a past version of yourself who thought you had to become a certain way. You've tried hard, you've pushed, you've been strong, yet deep inside, you may feel you're living a nearly right life, not the true one. The universe's message now is not blame, it's a gentle invitation. Are you ready to choose again? Choosing again doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means carrying everything you've learned and moving forward with greater awareness. When you choose again from understanding, your choice is no longer reckless. It becomes directed courage, and the universe responds strongly to that kind of choice. Not always with instant results, but always with alignment. You meet the right people at the right time. Doors that once seemed closed were only waiting for the right way to be touched. There is a very clear moment of awakening when you realize no one is coming to save you from your own life, and instead of feeling frightening, that realization brings a profound sense of freedom. You no longer wait for permission to live fully. You no longer wait for perfect circumstances. You begin to understand that every choice you make, even the smallest one, a declaration of your presence in this world, and each time you choose with integrity, the universe takes note. Integrity here is not rigid morality, it's alignment. Alignment between what you feel and what you do. When you say yes, you are fully present. When you say no, you respect your own boundaries. When you pursue something, you know why it matters to you. This kind of integrity creates a powerful field. It allows you to stand steady, even when outcomes are unclear. And that very field is what attracts the right opportunities, sustainable resources, and deep, meaningful connections. Courage, for Aries at this stage, is no longer about charging forward, atteindre cost. It's about facing fear directly, and still choosing action, without losing yourself. It's about taking responsibility for the impact of your actions, not only on yourself, but on those affected by them. When you step into this kind of courage, you no longer need to prove anything. Your presence speaks for itself. And prosperity, in this message, is not only about money. It's the state of living a life that isn't borrowed. Not borrowed from other people's dreams. Not borrowed from society's definitions of success. Not borrowed from fear. When you live this way, money becomes a natural part of the flow, no longer something you cling to or chase anxiously. If these words resonate, you may be standing very close to an important decision. Not necessarily a decision that looks big to others, but one that is deeply true to you. Maybe it's choosing to pause, recalibrate. Maybe it's choosing to continue, but differently. Maybe it's choosing to release a path that once fit, to make space for one not yet fully formed. Whatever it is, the universe doesn't ask you to know the outcome in advance. It only waits for your choice. Allow yourself to speak a statement, not as a ritual, but as a commitment to yourself. I choose to act with integrity, courage, and prosperity. Whether you say it aloud or silently, you're placing yourself in a very clear position. And from that place, responses begin to arrive. Maybe not immediately, but clearly enough to let you know you're not walking in empty space. If you feel this energy, leave a small sign in the comments. No explanation, no justification, just a way to mark the moment you touched something real. And if these words touch you, they are likely touching another Aries, standing at the same threshold. Sometimes sharing is not about spreading information, it's about spreading courage. Because Aries' awakening journey is never truly solitary, even though it's deeply personal. When one Aries dares to live truthfully with their choices, they don't just change their own life, they show others that it's possible. And that's how pioneering energy continues, from one person to the next, from one generation to another. And now, as you've listened long enough to recognize your own inner call, there's only one final thing that needs to be spoken, not to end, but to close an old cycle and open a new one. And that is the last message I want to leave you with. If you've stayed with me until these final moments, I want to offer a deep thank you. Not because you finished a piece of content, but because you allowed yourself to listen, to reflect, and to remain with yourself for this long, in a world that constantly urges us to be faster, to do more, to be louder. Choosing to pause and sit with inner questions is an act of real courage. It shows that you truly respect your own journey, and that is a beautiful quality of Aries. Aries is often described as the sign of beginnings, leadership, decisive action. But beneath all of that, there's a deeper layer not everyone sees. The ability to trust yourself, even when the road ahead is unclear. When you trust your intuition, when you stand by your own choices, money no longer feels like something you have to chase in exhaustion. It arrives naturally, as a consequence of living in alignment with your energy. At this point, prosperity is no longer about numbers. It's the feeling that you're doing something meaningful, that you're not betraying yourself for short-term security, that you're using what you have to create positive impact, small or large, in the world. When prosperity is held in that context, it becomes sustainable. And Aries, more than anyone, deserves a life that is both abundant and deep. If you are an Aries, searching for direction, remember, you were not born to live halfway. You were born to open paths to lead through presence, and to show the world that courage doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be clear. When you walk with trust, with integrity, and with awareness of the value you create, the right resources will find you. That's how the universe responds to those brave enough to live honestly. Before we close, if any part of this touched you, leave your mark, Alaika, to acknowledge your presence, Akumo, to name what you felt, even in just a few words. And if you know another Aries who needs to be reminded of their own worth, share this with them. When you spread positive energy, you don't just help others, you strengthen your own flow of prosperity. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your openness. May you leave here, not just with new thoughts, but with a steadier sense of who you are becoming. Aries deserves a meaningful life, and when you believe that, the world slowly learns to believe it too.